Hey, Sox fans, welcome back to Good Guys Talk Back. Hey, it's episode 262. I am Nick Murawski. This is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. We welcome you in if you're joining us live on our YouTube channel. We try to do this Sunday nights at 9:15. Obviously, the audio absolutely everywhere. Jump in on the comments. We got a lot to get to here as the Southsiders are scuffling down in Glendale, but there are some positives and the crazy stuff that Pedro says. Going to get into all that and more with my dear friend, diehard Sox fan, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Hey, buddy. Hey, if we did, we usually do about 45 minutes to an hour every episode, but give or take.
Yeah.
If we started right at this moment, is there enough time in the show to get through all of your Pedro quotes that you have? Because I know you've been tweeting a lot about them, pointing them out, highlighting things, circling. You're like John Madden with the Pedro full quote. So if we start right now, would we be able to get through all that you have?
We would barely. Now we usually spend time and we reflect on some of these profound comments from our fearless leader Pedro Grifol. So we would have to really limit the time that we talk about each one and break it down.
Okay.
But if I just
we wouldn't do it justice if we just rattled off and read everything that was out there said by Pedro. But I think it would be neat. Maybe we save that for a night when we don't have much to talk about. I just let you roll and I just sit back and listen to you read me a bedtime story.
It should be bound. These comments and these quotes should be bound in a leather-bound book, and they should give these things out maybe at Sox Fest next year. Everybody entering
great idea.
The thousands and thousands that will enter Sox Fest 2025. They should get a bound book of all of Pedro's comments and quotes and
not the real leather though. That would be not good enough for that.
Give me a break.
We're Sox fans.
That's just for the season ticket holders, those precious season ticket holders. Want to say hi to Greg and Sydney and John jumping in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us here. Our White Sox, as we record here on Sunday night, Pat, 3-8 in Cactus League play. Again, there haven't been many games televised, a few on the radio, and you've been able to catch some stuff on MLB, on the app, and you can find ways. We get some highlights and stuff, and there's been some good. There absolutely has been some good. We'll talk about it. There's been some rough play, and we haven't even seen some guys yet, and some folks that are battling for certain positions, battling for their life. It's been rough, early still, but, rough for some of those guys like Pilar and others. Since the last time we talked, Pat, here are three avenues we can kind of go down right off the bat. One doesn't have a lot of meat on the bone, but Oscar Colas was playing first base the other day. He was getting some reps at first base. We can explore that a little bit. We could talk about that right out of the gate.
I'd like to. I'm glad you went there because that's kind of that's
you didn't even want to hear about the other options.
No, I don't. I really don't. I want to talk about that first, and that needs to be discussed. Because
all right.
Why? Okay. Yeah. I need to gather my own thoughts here.
Yeah.
We seemingly have had for a long time a lot of first base DH type guys, right?
Sure.
Why are we working out a guy that we at one point thought was going to be our starting right fielder for many years to come, giving him an opportunity to work out things at first base when he clearly needs help working things out in right field? I can't get my mind around it. Why we need to press a guy into a position he's not good at. Part of me understands, like, let's get people well-rounded and give us options and things like that. But you have so few options in right field. Why would you want to not get that guy as many opportunities and reps in right field as possible?
I don't see. I really don't think it's going to be Oscar Colas in right field at all.
I don't either,
I
but
think
just for the record,
I think Dominic Fletcher is going to be your guy in right field. But I completely get what you're saying. I think we all were scratching our head, and I saw what Merkin put out. There was a justification of, well, he has been taking grounders for a few weeks now. I think he played in Japan at first base. Did I read that correct? So it's, that's kind of the why. Like we shouldn't all be up in a craze because oh my goodness, what is he doing? Well, he's done it. He's taken grounders and he played in Japan, but still, like, why is he doing any of that right now at first base? I get it. Pedro wants versatility, but that was not something I thought I was going to see this early on. Wasn't it this about this time last year too, where Berger was taking some stuff at second base?
it could have been there. Was some videos and him turning to playing second base, and we started to salivate and thought, well, maybe we could turn Jake Berger into a second baseman. That would be something that would be new. Yeah, it's befuddling, I guess. I don't understand why you don't give a guy that, again, I don't know that he'll be on this team for much longer. Who knows what his future is going to be like? But I just can't understand why you would take a guy that on opening day last year, Nick. He was your starting right fielder, right? Or was it? Did he? Was he on opening day, or what? He was.
Romy Gonzalez was your opener.
Okay.
I think because of a handsy situation. I think there was probably a lefty on the mound, maybe for Houston, so we had to have a right-handed hitter. But Colas got in there in that first series, and he was, they had the banners up along 35th Street, kind of well before the announcement. And that was pushed down our throats. Han talked about it, bullish on Oscar Colas. And although a lot of people were saying, hey, he needed a little bit more time, some seasoning in the minors, that wasn't the case. And he looked all of it. Hey, this could have been just we're going to kind of designate you for assignment. We're going to send you back to the minors. Is there anything you wanted to do in Arizona? Before we
ground balls before.
I'd like to maybe get in at first base if you guys don't mind. Can you put me there maybe just for a little bit? Sure, Oscar. Absolutely. We'll give you that chance.
Again, we're going to deploy the multiple people at one position option when we get to Chicago. That's fantastic. We don't have to spend much more time on it. I thought it was so absurd when I saw it that I would love that we started there. So back to you.
It's pretty goofy. He's been putting the time in the off season with the bat, worked with a personal hitting coach in the off season to hopefully try to shake him out of whatever funk he had last year. Sounds like Luis Robert Jr. has kind of taken him under his wing, and they've been shadowing, and I'm assuming Robert Jr. has not been shadowing Colas, but more of Colas looking up to Robert. It's something that I was hoping for last year of who was going to help this guy out with Jose Abreu gone, who was going to be the veteran that was going to step up, because you knew he was going to scuffle. You knew he was going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And Grifol didn't do him any favors, throwing him under the bus constantly. Colas didn't help himself out, couldn't hit a cutoff guy to save his life. And how they bounced him back and forth. He should have never started with the big league club, but he did. And now that's what's happening with him. He's taking grounders at first. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm looking forward, maybe, next week when I'm down there in sunny Arizona. Love to see me some Oscar Colas at first base.
Please do. Please.
Shots. I cannot wait.
If you can Facebook Live it or whatever people do these days. Or, just an impromptu podcast live from the ballpark. You and I we'll just get on and
Oscar Colas at first, and footwork and such.
Boots on the ground, Nick Murawski on the scene.
I'll be there. So the other two things that you didn't even want to hear, you want to get right into the Colas stuff.
Now I'll wait. I'll pause after these two things. Now, okay, go ahead.
I didn't hear an and. So starters have been getting starts. Some of our starters that we assume will be around, taking the ball once the season opens in late March. They've been getting some playing time and more innings this coming week. And Yohan Moncada and Pedro Grifol, a lot of stuff going on the last couple days. Yohan Moncada wants that 2-hole spot in the lineup. He wants to be hitting second. Pedro has got some really interesting thoughts on that spot in the lineup. So we could talk Moncada lineup construction, or we can talk about the starters so far.
Let's leave the starters because I think there's some positive there, and I'd like to spend some healthy amount of time talking about what we've seen from some of our starters this past week. And let's dive right into trying to transition Yohan Moncada into bunting and sacrificing himself in the lineup.
Hello to Howard and Danny. Thank you so much for jumping in here as we are doing this live on the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. So, okay, you and I growing up a different time of how the lineup was constructed, the top hitter, the second hitter. Even if you wanted to look, of course, at the 2005 team, Scotty Pods, you got your speed, not a lot of power at all, but you've got your speed, being patient at the top of the order, getting on base is the key because you are going to be running, and Tadahito Iguchi in that second spot. And, if you watched a lot in 2005, if you didn't, it was amazing the amount of times that I might not have caught the game right at the beginning, but when I tuned in, they had the lead. The Sox had the lead, and it was usually like 1-0 or something, and it was a run early on because Scotty got on, stole second, and Tadahito Iguchi did what he did so well. He hit it, to right field, and we're on the board. I mean, that's how the makeup was. Get him on, get him over, get him in, Ozzie ball. And that has changed, not really with the White Sox and how they do things, but overall in baseball, that has changed. Your number 2 hitter is sometimes now your best hitter. You've got your best hitters 1 and 2, and this has been going on for a while. It's been a trend really over the last decade. Getting your best hitters as many plate appearances as possible, as often. You've got Acuna Jr. Hitting leadoff, Mookie Betts. Christian Yelich, Kyle Schwarber, Springer, Rushman, all hitting in that leadoff spot. Freddie Freeman hitting second. Mike Trout hits second. Aaron Judge, Corey Seager, Paul Goldschmidt, Julio Rodriguez saw some time in that spot. And Shohei Ohtani, in the spring here is hitting in the 2-hole. Juan Soto hitting in the 2-hole for the Yankees. So Judge will obviously is going to drop probably down to third. So that's kind of like just to give you a taste of what's been happening around in Major League Baseball. So, Moncada has approached, Grifol about, hitting in that 2-hole. And so this is what Grifol has said about Moncada. It's focus and concentration for him, and that's what we're harping. Everybody knows his ability. I don't have to tell you guys the kind of ability he's got. He can do anything on the field. It's all going to come down to concentration. Well, I would say that also health, the strength of his back and legs and lower body and all that kind of stuff, his oblique, all that obviously plays a big role. So he has expressed, Pat, to Pedro Grifol that he'd like to bat second this season. And this is what Pedro said to Moncada or about that situation. He's one of our best bunters. I'll say that again. He's one of our best bunters. He's one of our best hit and run guys. And everyone knows the ability he has from both sides of the plate. What I did tell him is this: I like consistency in the lineup, even though I'll shake it up this year if I have to. I don't like interrupting the rhythm of the lineup with your main guys. So what does that mean? You got to play. You got to give us games. So he knows it. He wants it. He's got to go get it. I'm not going to hand it to him. So that's a little bit of, some merit stuff. He is going to have to somehow go earn that best hitter on our team, so to speak. Now, I agree with Pedro Grifol. You got to stay healthy, man. because if you want that spot, we need consistency in that spot. But who knows what's going to happen with Moncada? If he's right, he can be dangerous. We've seen glimpses. Okay. We need to see much more. All of that, Pat, what are your takeaways from it?
Well, I do like the fact that Yohan Moncada wants that spot in the lineup because he's not stupid. He's been around the game for a little bit. He sees the trends. He knows where the best hitters hit. And he would like to think of himself as one of those great hitters. Now, you listed off a lot of, probably the best players in all of baseball. I wouldn't put Yohan Moncada in that same conversation at this point, but we all do know that he does have that. At one point, he did anyway have that potential. I don't know if that's still in him or if there's a possibility there. I would love to see it. I would love to finally, be right on my prediction, which I won't predict this year, of him being the MVP of the team and possibly their best player. I guess I enjoy the fact that Pedro is entertaining the idea, but I just can't wrap my brain around Yohan Moncada getting that second spot when you have an all-star center fielder that's going to be missing out on those opportunities. If it comes down to Yohan Moncada at the end of a game and getting that extra bat when it could go to Luis Robert Jr., I don't know if that's going to be winning baseball, Nick. Now, the plus side is, yes, he's a switch hitter, so it leaves him available for opportunities, and it changes some things in the game, right? I mean, he can certainly handle the bat from the right side or the left side, but I don't know that I really want him bunting a lot. Right. Regardless, I've never seen him bunt. Have you ever seen him bunt? I don't recall ever seeing him bunt. To say that he's the best bunter on the team.
He's laid down a bunt, but he must be doing some sort of. There must be some sort of bunting practice going on that is extensive. Like Pedro must be running a whole, backfields over there at the complex for him to come out and say. I love that was the first thing he said, though. Not that he's got a lot of power to the alleys or, he's dangerous or he's very selective or he's one of our best bunters. Is what I'd like to say about him hitting in that second spot. He's one of our best hit and run guys. Would you say Yohan Moncada is one of your best hit and run guys? I mean,
no, I'd say, you know what? I'm glad he wants this spot. He's got the potential to be one of the best hitters in all of baseball. And yes, that would mean that he should be up in that high up in the lineup. I'm not one of those people that's going to rage against the bunt when it's there. I think there are still situations in which a sacrifice bunt makes sense. If you're in the extra innings and you've got the ghost runner and you want to move him over, I could see giving up an out there, but the metrics say, and I am not a huge metrics or sabermetrics type guy, but it tells you that it's really stupid to give up outs these days. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to do that. So I just can't understand the thinking that Pedro has right now with talking about Yohan Moncada being one of our best bunters and considering it because of that.
Yeah, that's where it really, that's where I almost had to stop reading it, but I continued for the sake of the show, because it just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, 2 holes should be probably Luis Robert Jr., right? I mean, that to me, and the way Eloy Jimenez has been swinging the bat, we'll get to some of his numbers, but he's been a pleasant surprise offensively. And I know he wants to play in 150 games. That's his goal. He, along with Moncada and Luis Robert Jr. Now, what the problem that Pedro is going to have is, if he doesn't want to be moving guys all over the place, it's going to have to be, I've got either faith in Moncada or Moncada. He's been having an okay spring so far. I mean, he came out like on fire, but he's cooled off, and there's still a lot more spring training left, but he's in 5 games, Moncada is 4 for 12, couple of doubles, 1 RBI, 0 home runs, hitting .333, slugging .500, and has an OPS of .885. So if you're going to go with a kind of a concrete lineup, and again, things might change, we don't have a huge sample size of Moncada, so maybe it's like what's best on this team. You definitely can't compare yourself with what's going on in the rest of the American League. You really have to
Right.
look at your lineup. Like,
Right.
what's the best in this lineup,
Yeah.
and how are you going to structure it? I mean, if Eloy continues at the pace that he's going at, which has been really impressive, 6 games, which is almost halfway home for him. He played in 14 games, maybe 13 the year before. That's about where he's at. So he's almost at that halfway point. So 6 games, 8 for 17, pair of doubles, 6 RBIs, 10 total bases, hitting .471, slugging .588 with an OPS over 1,000. That's Eloy Jimenez. So maybe Eloy Jimenez sneaks up in the lineup. But again, if this is Pedro's mentality with how he's going to set the lineup, and he's looking for a guy like Tadahito Iguchi, that can be a great bunter, that can hit guys over for doing hit and run, sacrificing all that kind of stuff. The more we try to get inside the baseball thinking of Pedro Grifol, the more he talks. Like, I wonder if reporters are just like, no, that's enough, Pedro. We got it. No,
We got everything we need.
I'd like to continue on this. I've got more things that I can say in this philosophy. And they're like, no. You don't want to say that stuff. Like, let's end it. We had a good, solid ending. We don't need to say, no, I've got tons of ideas on things that are, that would revolutionize.
We'll talk about on Good Guys Talk Back if I don't continue
Right.
to speak. You know what? It will be interesting, Nick, he did mention consistency and not wanting to change it up. I mean, this season is going to be what this season is. It's going to be most likely a non-competitive season. And I know managers aren't going to look at that or think about that much. And the players aren't going to play to the way it's like, okay, well, this season doesn't matter anyway. I don't have to try as hard, all that kind of stuff. But do you let a lineup continue to roll because you believe it's the best possible lineup and not have a quick trigger to change it because there's not a lot of pressure to actually win this season?
And that's a really good question. Based on what everybody's saying, they're going to say all the right things, this team. And, I think there's belief within the team of why are people sleeping on us? Like, why are we not being given more of a chance? And, I've talked about this with Danny on the Future Sox program, Hot Takes and Heaters, of maybe they have a hot April. Maybe they come out and they play some really exciting baseball in April. I mean, I think it would surprise everybody. Maybe they play pretty well at halfway of May. Can they sustain that kind of stuff? You're talking about some guys that are going to be on this team that, they've been fighting for jobs in this Cactus League, right? Fighting for jobs, fighting for opportunities. And maybe once you make the team, maybe you relax a little bit. Maybe you take the foot off the gas. And, we don't have a lot of proven studs on this team that, like, wow, we know what we're going to get out of these guys for 162. We've got a lot of hope, and that's different, and that should be better. And, I think we're going to see a different brand of baseball. We have all that kind of stuff, but there's not a lot of, we just know top to bottom and the depth, it's going to be solid. So he didn't do it last year, Pat, to your original question. I mean, Pedro Grifol kept Tim Anderson where he was forever and would not move him. And
you think there was more of fear of, there's a reason why Tim Anderson isn't on this team anymore. And I think it was a lot, not just because of his performance, because of whatever was going on in that dugout and in that clubhouse, whether it was with Pedro or with the team or whatever it was. Maybe Pedro wasn't willing to stand up to a Tim Anderson, or maybe he looked at Tim as, this is the real leader. He's a leader that I thought I was supposed to have. I can't mess with that because he's the straw that stirs the drink type of guy, like we talked about a lot, and he just never panned out.
I think Pedro Grifol knew early on that he probably didn't have the confidence of these guys. He probably doesn't have a lot of it right now. For we're really talking and what's going on behind the curtains. and he knew it was shaky. Like
Mhm.
I don't think I've got a lot of trust, and why should they trust him? Like what has he ever really done? He's got a long baseball resume, but like, come on, concrete in terms of managing, what have you done? And
Yeah.
he probably figured, if I screw around with this guy, I'm probably going to catch hell, and I'm going to lose everybody at this point then, and I'm going to lose. So what do I have I don't have a lot to go on here. I'm just gonna keep it, and I'm gonna keep doubling down on the fact that Tim Anderson is gonna break out of this. That I have faith in Tim Anderson, and that was what he kept playing. He just
Yeah.
kept going with that, and it wasn't. I can tell you how many games were lost, but and here we are arguing lineup construction, and it's early March, but that matters. If you're going to set your team up for success, and what does a manager actually matter anyways? We can debate that, but if they're setting the lineup, or whoever is setting the lineup, maybe it's not Pedro, maybe it was never Pedro, maybe someone else was doing it and he just took the credit. Set your team up for success, with everything that you have to work with and how modern baseball is going, and know your team really well and what type of game you want to play. Now, that's up to Pedro and the staff, if that's the type of way they want to look at the 2 spot in the lineup. I'm going to try not to read too much into it, but the more he says lately, I'm just like, man, I can't believe this guy's still the manager of the White Sox. I really can't.
It is something, and I just want to go back, and I know you want to transition to other things, but you had mentioned, what if we have a hot April? Well, you're going to have, this is the time where you lean into that. It's a good thing that we play in the Central, because
Mhm.
you're basically playing your division, and outside of that, you don't have a lot of winnable games, Nick. You've got Atlanta, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, Tampa Bay.
Ooh.
Outside of your division, basically, you're playing. So you better take care of business. If you're all this, this whole off season, all I heard was, it's a good thing that we're playing we play in the Central, and it's anybody's division in the Central. Well, you're getting a lot of the Central, and outside of that, you're getting premium teams, teams that are probably going to be fighting, if not winning their division, or, in the playoffs this coming year, with stars all over the place in Atlanta and Philadelphia. Tampa Bay is always going to be tough. We saw that last year in April. We got Tampa Bay twice in April, if memory serves. And I think we went 1-6 against them last year. So you better pony up and play well against the Clevelands and the Detroits and the Kansas Cities and everybody else that's in our division.
So, that's a great point, and they count just as much as they count at the end of the season. We talk about this every year, as I'm sure you folks talk with other Sox fans at the beginning of the year. The games that slip away, those games that you beat yourself, you lose those games, they add up, and you'll say to yourself, man, if we just played a better brand of baseball in April and May, we'd be in a different situation than we are right now in July or August or whatever it may be. And that was some rough start to the season last year. They just couldn't get it back on track, and the rest is history. So just trying to put a cap on this whole Moncada 2 spot. Again, I agree with you. I love that he's aggressive. He's passionate about that. I don't know if he fits in that spot right now. We'll see how things, go the rest of spring. But all those names that I mentioned, and how lineups are constructed throughout Major League Baseball, like those names, and it's tough to compare Moncada to those names. Those names are elite in all of baseball. He's not in that company. He could be, if things have gone differently, and maybe he does have a lot of baseball left in his career. He stays healthy and so forth. But those are danger guys that I was reading off. Robert was a danger guy last year. Frank Thomas, when we were growing up, that was Mr. Danger with an exclamation mark. That was a guy that when you saw that guy come up, you were so scared to make a mistake. You would pitch around him. And he just would eat your lunch because they lived off mistakes, and it made everybody else better in that lineup. And that's what I wanted to see for so long, as so many people wanted to see, is just danger guys in this lineup, from
Yeah.
Moncada to Eloy to Robert and so on. And we just don't have that. Luis Robert Jr. is our danger guy. Right now, Eloy Jimenez looks pretty locked in and dialed in
Well,
spring. But I wouldn't call Moncada a danger guy right now.
no, not at this point. Maybe he was in 2019 and on the rise, and as he was that year and into 2020, maybe. But he just hasn't been the guy that we had hoped that we would get. And then as far as Eloy goes, it's fantastic that he's having the spring that he's having. Just watch out for any cracks in the sidewalk. I hope that there's no, low ceilings anywhere that he's going to bump his head or something. I just worry that he's going to take a stumble somewhere.
With Colas playing first, I joked around that, maybe just, people do whatever they want. If somebody wants to play a certain position this year, maybe that's the year for it. If Eloy's going to continue to hit like this, I would say no to him. If he wants to be a catcher for a game or something, I'd say no. There's only certain guys that get to live those fantasies right now. We like what you're doing. Stick what you're doing. Stay the course, sir. We need you in that DH spot if you're hitting like this.
Yeah, no doubt about it. That'd be fun though if you could pick your spot. You show up to the ballpark, and if you get there first, you get to write your name on the lineup and where you go and what position you play. That's fantastic.
So I think Greg was in the chats first here tonight for our live episode here. He probably should have been able to pick the topic. You pick, Greg, what you want to hear from us first. I bet you he would have picked Colas too. Knowing
you think
Greg.
So?
I'm sure he would want to talk about him.
Maybe that's something we can do next week, Nick. We could allow the first person that comes in to pick the topic. Yeah. And we just go with it.
Yeah. And maybe that's like Mendick was pitching, and that's something that's on the agenda, because maybe Danny Mendick was pitching this week. We'll see. Speaking of pitching, we saw some of our starters that we think will be in the starting rotation. They got some time, and that's been exciting, Pat. Yeah, this is some fun stuff to talk about. Mm-hmm. We saw Dylan Cease get some action, Fetty, Kopech, and Crochet. I want to start with Crochet.
Yeah.
And this was fun for him. He had a fun week.
Yeah.
He had a week that this is something to build off of. And it all started against the Dodgers in his debut against Shohei Ohtani, which is making his debut, and a dangerous Dodgers lineup. Crochet went an inning and 2/3 that game. Looked solid, man. He looked like he had the velocity. Again, the adrenaline was probably pumping 1,000,000 miles per hour. It was a short outing, but he gave it, man. He took care of Ohtani, lit him up 100 miles per hour. He rode the elevator, which I talk about a lot especially when I was doing lockdown shows and I was breaking down pitching stuff. Changing the eye level is so critical. Giolito had problems with it. Kopech has had problems with it. And you get into this groove, and I don't know if it's a lack of confidence or just simply you can't locate, and your velocity isn't there. Giolito's fell off. Kopech was nowhere near what we wanted him to be. And when you're grooving it in and you're not changing the location, Lance Lynn had problems with this too. I mean, guys are going to tee off. They're absolutely going to tee off. You've got to change things up, especially when you're at 0-2, change things up. So Crochet was doing that. Yeah, he was pitching really well to the top of the strike zone, which I liked. And, he pitched effectively there. And that's that's a huge confidence boost. That is huge to have that type of outing against the Dodgers, especially against Ohtani. You want to be in the starting rotation. You've talked it up. We know the history with the injuries and everything. What you finally want to show what you can do. And that was your debut. It looked good. Well, then here he is, pitched against the Angels just on Sunday here, 2 more scoreless innings. So altogether, his 2 outings, 3 2/3, 5 strikeouts, 2 hits, 0 walks, 0 runs, and he struck out Trout today. So he struck out Ohtani and Trout. It's a pretty nice spring so far.
Yeah, that's great. And now's the time that you and I look at the odds on him for winning the Cy Young. I think we get some great value right now. We have to, I think, temper our excitement a little bit, but it's a positive start for him. He would fill obviously a much needed role in the starting staff in terms of a left-handed starter. It was for me nice, and you talked about, and I think I agree 100%, the changing eye level and all that stuff. But when you're pumping it, like he looked like he was, and I don't know what he was topping out at, velocity wise, but it looked like he had a lot of life on the fastball. It looked like he had a great control. He looked like the guy that came up that we saw, in that short stint, right at the end of the season in 2020. And
yeah.
it was exciting to see and fun to watch. And it looked electric. So, how long will it last in terms of, what was his high watermark for innings, 77 innings in a year. And he hasn't had a lot of baseball under his belt in his career, right? Because he didn't start pitching until he was a late bloomer, really, in terms of when he started playing baseball. So, this is going to be some new territory for him if he is a starter, and how long he can go, and how they look to stretch him out over the rest of the spring, and how long can he go when he starts a game? Is it 5 innings at the most? Is it so it'll be interesting. But again, I was very pleased with what I saw. That aside from the names on the back of the jersey that are hard to see, that of the guys he did strike out, that is very positive. So I'll take it. Right, we don't have a lot of positives to talk about. The 3-8 record, obviously, not a lot of great things to talk about with, but some starting pitching that. I'm not going to say it's going to round into form and be this way all year, but so far so good.
Yeah, so far so good. Fetty threw 2 innings, 4 hits, a walk, 3 strikeouts, 1 earned run. I figure he's going to be, in the starting rotation. Michael Kopech saw some action. A little shaky at the beginning, which is nothing unusual for a Kopech outing, but he settled down, which is, again, my point with the bullpen stuff. I know everybody with his, he's got electric stuff at times, his velocity and everything. He can only pitch in short spurts, but he's also a guy that I feel like needs that first inning almost, or the first few batters out of the way, and then he settles down. You don't have that luxury when you're coming out of the bullpen, unless you're always going to give him a clean inning, nobody on, and maybe we have the lead and say, have at it, guy, eat up some innings for us. He comes in with guys on and he has just no wiggle room. He doesn't have the ability to settle into something, and he spoke about it. Granted, it was his first outing of the spring, and there was some nerves, and the plate was jumping a little bit for him, but he went 45 pitches, 24 of them were strikes, 5 strikeouts, 6 full counts, which is a problem, but only 1 walk. Faced 8 batters, 0 hits, 0 runs. Now, Kopech is going to go again on Wednesday against the Dodgers, which I'll be excited to see. But I was watching that Kopech start, and, he's got some nasty stuff when he can control it. He talked a lot this past week about, overcoming some mental stuff and getting his life, his personal life and his family and what he personally has done in his life. And, he just wants it. He's overcome so much. And I know it's like, well, what are we going to see from Kopech? Is it the same old, or is it absolutely going to unlock? And at the beginning of that start, it's like, here we go again. But then you see those moments where he can it just comes together and he can harness it. Again, early, small sample size. We'll see what happens on Wednesday against the Dodgers. But Kopech, Kopech's going to be in the starting rotation, I believe.
Yeah, I think he will too, Nick. And I think, again, some positive stuff. The pitch count, obviously a little high, going full as many times as you said he did. Control will always be the issue for him right now. If he can, he does have a fantastic rising fastball. That's, I think, where he needs to live, but he gets underneath it a little bit too much, and then it's not a competitive pitch and nobody's swinging at it anyway. If he can get it to the point where it starts in the zone and rises up, above the belt, he's going to get a lot of swing and miss right there, Nick.
Yeah, he's kind of on a two-pitch program. Developing that changeup has been an issue of him for a while. Confidence in the changeup. So if he can get those three pitches, and he can find the strike zone regularly, and not have that bummer of a first inning where he leaves a lot of guys on. He's exhausted. He throws a lot of pitches. He's rattled. Oh, it's going to be a whole different situation for him. That's a big if. That's a big if. Cease also threw 2 innings, 2 hits, 1 strikeout, 0 runs. Now, Cease is this is like the greatest spring for him. He's feeling great. All the distractions are, he's not even thinking about all the trade stuff. This is something that he said I took note of. I'm really excited for this rotation. A lot of people are sleeping on us. You see how the ball is coming out of Michael's hand right now. Garrett is nasty. Fetty is super nasty. He locates well. This team has a ton of potential. We're being slept on for sure. This is the best I've been in spring training, and I don't know how long. How about that?
Wow. Interesting. I mean, he did have a pretty awful spring, if memory serves, last year.
Yeah.
And it was all, well, he's working on stuff. You can't really take too much out of spring training. It's guys getting work in. Don't worry about it. He'll turn it on. And he did for game 1 of last year. And then after that, it was really just pretty mediocre for the most part, aside from maybe a couple good starts here or there. So, hey, that's all great. That's wonderful. Make it a hard decision come trade deadline with this starting staff. If this is the identity of the team, and I think you and I would be pleasantly surprised if this starting staff was something to write home about, right, Nick? Then make it hard on the front office to make that decision and trade him. If somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, you are holding on and being competitive in this division, and it's because of your starting staff, that would be great. To have a first half where you're looking at this and going, we can't break up the starting staff because it's so good. Now, maybe I'm putting the cart before the horse just a little bit.
No. I like this positivity. Positive Pat, here we go.
Positive Pat, here we go. Look out. It's happening. But yeah, again, it's nice to see him having a good spring. He does look, every time you see him, whether he's interrupting an interview that Chuck's trying to do, looks very relaxed, looks very at peace with who he is right now. And kind of like this, I'm going to have fun with it, and I'm going to get some good work in, and we'll see what happens. I can't control the rumors and what could happen with my future.
I think Ken Rosenthal said something, maybe 5-6 days ago about, how there's a lot of positivity in the camp. There's positivity, which there should be. It's the beginning of camp. You're in Arizona. There hasn't been baseball, in a long, long time. It's fresh starts for a lot of these guys. And there are no expectations. Everybody is sleeping on the Chicago White Sox. They are.
Everybody.
So they've got
every single person in the world is.
Not every single person. I have heard some people say that 81-81 is a possibility.
Who? Wait a minute. Wait. Stop the press. Who is that?
I'm not going to name names. There's people out there that you think how you want to think. I'm not going to out anybody for being super positive at a 500 record. If that's how you're feeling right now.
Vinny? You're not even, your little boy.
My son who can't even put sentences together. This is his first.
But he's predicting an 81. That's fine. Hey, yeah. He's a kid. Yeah. That's great. Good for him.
But you're supposed to have that right now, right? Maybe that catches on, and maybe there is I'm trying to talk myself into that, but I think the thing that you were mentioning, I think is tangible, is realistic. If this starting staff can really unlock some stuff, and they've got the health and they've got the endurance, there could be some fun baseball for a little while, but you got, who's your fifth? Cease in that whole positive quote there didn't say anything about Flexen. I didn't hear Flexen. Flexen hasn't even pitched yet in the spring. Is Soraka your fifth? I think he's going early this week. Is Tukey. Tukey, started quite a bit last year. He got lit up, in his first spring outing, which again, small sample size, but it depends on what they're looking at.
Yeah, and it is funny that he didn't mention anybody else outside of the four guys he did mention. But again, whoever it might be, your fifth starter is your fifth starter, and quite honestly, Nick, in a baseball season, you're going to probably have 9 guys start at some point because of injuries, because of other things. So it's going to be more than just 5 guys. But if pitching can be an identity, that would be fantastic. I would love to just say, listen, this team isn't going to really score a lot of runs. They're going to have a big gaping chasm at 7, 8, 9 in their lineup. But you know what? When you go and you play the Chicago White Sox and their starting staff, you are in for it for a game, right?
That would be nice. I go back to the chasm.
Yeah,
like that would be I just would love to sit in on those hitter meetings with the opposition and Cleveland's going through. This is what you're going to see here from the White Sox. And then there's this big chasm here, 7, 8, 9, that you could pretty much just roll the ball in or just lob it. We shouldn't expect any problems because of that chasm that they have. That I hope they talk about it. And I hope they're wrong. I hope they're sleeping on the chasm.
I think they talk to some of the guys in the outfield, say, hey, when this spot comes up, if everybody needs to come in for a water break, come on in. You should be fine. If there's just 2 or 1
you
guy
want to interact
out
with fans a little bit,
yeah,
that'd be kind of a fun promotion.
Get a snack, whatever you need to do. Some goldfish crackers are a great
Hydrate,
snack.
Get your electrolytes up. It's the chasm. So just easy, everybody out there. Just nobody hurt yourself. You got Jordan Leisure, who's been impressive too. Nastrini. Schulten's went down with Tommy John, which I thought he was going to be. I mean, we joked at the end of last season that he could be in the rotation. I thought he was going to be long relief. They've been having a lot of arm problems right now, which is typical. But some of the stuff like Tommy John is see ya. Who's next? So maybe Flexen does go to the bullpen and long relief spots. I don't know. Maybe Crochet falls off and it's just like, hey, I'm out. I struck out Ohtani and Trout. That's it for me. I'll just go to the bullpen now. I'll just, what? That's all I needed. That's all I needed to do. So, I think there's some excitement. Again, can these arms do it for the long haul? Danny mentioned in the chat the potential. I think based off of Cease's quote, potential. On paper, yeah, there's a lot of excitement from what Fetty brings and what Kopech could unleash. And Cease is really auditioning, isn't he? He's really auditioning. He knows it. He is going to be under the spotlight every start. The on and on. So that is warm to think about, Pat. That is warm that the pitching could hold up for a little while. The offense is definitely questionable. Scott Merkin came out with a very, very early list. I don't know if you saw it, Pat, or anybody else listening here to the podcast. And this the battles that are going on. There's a lot of locks. I mean, from DeYoung to Lopez, I think Maldonado and Stassi. Those are pretty obvious, but he was looking at the bench and utility, and these are the names that I believe he's predicted: Kevin Pillar, Danny Mendick, and Mike Moustakas. And this is his write-up here. The utility infield spot features a tussle between Schumacher, Lenine Sosa, Popeye Rodriguez, and non-roster invitees Mendick and Remillard. At the end of the day, it's probably not going to be who had the best stats in the spring, said our fearless leader, Pedro Grifol. It's going to be who helps us win many different ways off the bench.
Wait a minute. Wouldn't the stats directly impact to who is helping you win?
Look, man, I'm just reading the quote. This is again.
I know you just work here.
The more I read some of this stuff and try to actually make sense of it,
It may not be the best players. It's going to be who helps us win. All right.
All those intangibles, who had the best pep talk in the 5th inning, who was really up at that top step, into the game, who was right in my hip, asking me what I would do in this situation, who was trying to steal maybe the other team's signs, all that, it's just, it's kind of funny. Now, he kind of operated this way last year. I remember him talking about this kind of stuff, but at the end, Hanser Alberto won that from, I would assume, Lurie Garcia in super utility. Hanser Alberto had the stats. He also could do a bunch of different things that, Pedro's big on versatility, but Lurie Garcia could do all of that too, I guess. And it just came down, I think, to stats. So maybe this year he's like, I'm not going to pay attention to stats. I don't even want to know. I'm just going to pick a guy that I kind of like and that I'm familiar with, which is why, people are going to sound this is crazy, but that's why I think Mike Moustakas has a chance, because how familiar he is with Grifol and vis-a-vis. All these guys, Pilar, Mendick, Moustakas, they have horrible numbers right now. Deloach, horrible. I mean, minuscule stuff. Again, fairly small sample size, but you don't have a big sample size to work with in the Cactus League. Whatever time you have to make the most of it. So maybe Grifol's going to be like, well, if everything's equal, Moose Man, I know what he can bring. He's got some, some TWT, some fire. I don't know.
I would love that to be how he announces it. Moose Man's in. Mustache guy. No, I don't have any room for you. Sorry. Love you, mean it.
Gavin Sheets, he had a couple home runs this past week.
Yes,
and
he did.
And it sure seems like the legend Jim Thome has got something to say about that. I feel like he's coaching him up. White Sox legend.
Don't forget the White Sox part of it.
White Sox legend.
Peoria's favorite son.
Yeah, he's really. He's been talking to Sheets. Sheets, I think, has unlocked some stuff, and so. And now Gavin Sheets is probably like palms up, like, what's going on here? Colas is taking grounders at first. Are you kidding me? Like, what's going on here?
If Gavin Sheets could turn into half the player that Jim Thome was, that would be a win for us.
Half, right? An eighth. I would say, I would say an eighth. Give me an eighth of Jim Thome.
I think he is an eighth of Jim Thome right now.
Really? I don't think so.
I wasn't very good at math, though. You were. I don't even know.
Maybe he's more. Maybe
I don't even know what an eighth would be.
Well, it's a half of a fourth. So
can you move on? Just
right.
next.
You want me to just read another Pedro quote and just settle your brain?
That will make me feel much better. Things will become clear again. And yes, I can't wait to hear the next thing.
Well, all I'm saying is, nobody's winning any battle right now. So that's TBD. I think your takeaways are the pitching has been pretty exciting to watch so far, especially the starters. I was pleasantly surprised at what I've seen out of Crochet. Eloy seems healthy. He seems happy. And, he's really hitting the ball right now. I love that. I love that for him. And, again, I want the drive from Moncada. We all do. We've been waiting to see what, he can bring to the table for a long, long time consistently. And if he is healthy, and everybody's healthy, right? But if he truly is healthy deep down, man, and he's not just putting on a front, just try to grind through stuff. If he really is, then we'll see it. It'll show because I do think he has that talent. Whatever lingering stuff has been going on truly has hampered him.
Yeah, for sure. Again, there are outside of all the things that we've talked about that are negative and the the laughable nature that is guys trying to make these last couple spots and fighting out for things. You do have, again, if things could ever go our way and people do stay healthy and live up to potential that we've all looked at, there are some bright spots on this team, Nick. There is bright stuff. Obviously, in Luis Robert Jr., there is opportunity and bright things that could happen with Eloy. I do what it's interesting. Did Eloy really say that he wanted to lead the American League in home runs? He wanted to be the home run king. Is that right?
No, you know what? I didn't hear him say specifically that. But,
okay, but
a goal.
That's a positive. He could be a potential leading the league in home runs type of guy if he was healthy. So, and we talked about some things in the pitching staff that there could be some potential positivity in. It would be nice. It would probably be out of the realm of possibility because not all things go your way all the time. But it seems like so much has been against us for so long, and it really hasn't been that long. It's really been a 2-year stretch where nothing seems to have gone right for this team. It would be nice for things to just kind of right themselves in the universe, right? Where guys do stay healthy, where guys do just play, the game the way that we would expect them to play, and they don't shoot themselves in the foot on a night in and night out basis. Maybe that could happen, and maybe that's enough to get to be 500. I don't know. They don't have enough star power on this team to be able to go much more than that. But there's opportunity here, Nick, where there's some positive things that could come out of this season. But I digress.
I get what you're saying. I do. Who knows? Maybe Eloy goes off and he just leans into the DH. Whatever he did, in terms of his stance, which is a little different. He likes that. That's consistent. He's healthy. And maybe he sticks around as a future DH. Maybe they signed him and they say, you know what, we need you here. I think we figured something out finally. I don't know, but that would be fun. If Luis Robert Jr. lives up to what he did last year, Eloy and him are vying for the AL home run crown. Wouldn't that be something?
Now we're getting into prediction time, Nick.
Well, not yet. We're a few weeks away from that, but but to your health point, I think that's when we do predictions and we do all of this stuff, like, man, I don't know, but what I want to see is, because I feel like we're playing for the future, not necessarily this year. What I want to see is just guys that might be on this team next year and beyond. I want them to be healthy, and I want to see what they can do. And maybe even guys that they might not come back next year, like a Yohan Moncada, at least stay healthy. I'd love to see what you can do healthy. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's not what we all anticipate, but at least you're healthy to show us.
Yeah.
And that goes for Crochet and Kopech and so many others. Like, I don't know what those stats and those numbers are going to look like, but how great would it be if we didn't have all of these injuries and we just stayed relatively healthy?
Well, your lips to God's ears, my friend.
All right. How about it's time for Pedro Grifol quote of the week? What do you think?
I don't know if we've left enough time, but I'd love to hear it.
Okay, we've got a couple here. I'll just bunch them into one. So this is we've given you a lot of Pedro Grifol this entire episode. We tend to do that, but we saved some of the better things for the last segment here. Pedro Grifol quote of the week: pressure is not just speed. Pressure is playing fearless, playing really, really, really aggressive. There's a certain way we want to do things and a certain style of play we want to see. That's where we are at. I've said this before. The train is leaving the station. You either are on it or you are not. This is how we do things. It's always great to be forward thinking and using a train reference. But also I still don't understand what he's talking about when it comes to, like, there's a certain way we want to do things and a certain style. Like, what is that? He's never really been... really, 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 really aggressive, Nick. I mean, he says these things, but it's also vague. Like, what are you exactly talking about? I want someone of him to follow up on, like, what is that style of play? What are the things that you want to do? And then it's like, that's where we're at. It's like, so you're at a land of just trying to like indefinable qualities. Like that's where you're at. Like you're in, question mark world,
Yeah, I just picture them all walking around like super aggressive all the time, like eating lunch, "Rawr, aggressive all the time, really aggressive, and or I better get this done faster than miss the train.
But
Rawr."
see, you don't want to be too aggressive because didn't Oscar Colas get yelled at last year because he was like he had the boombox up too much in terms of his playing style? He
I
was too
well,
aggressive. So
well,
maybe he went beyond the really, really, really. He went to like, to goofy aggressive. You
just a
can't be
whirling
goofy aggressive.
dervish that couldn't be controlled. Yes, that's where he was at.
Yeah. I look, we have fun with this gentleman, but he is the manager. This is what we have, and he's I believe got one more year after this year on the contract. I think I think he thinks he knows what he's talking about. I don't really know. I don't think it's clear, but hopefully some of that will materialize in the next few weeks and beyond.
Maybe if Jerry gets $1 billion, he can find a way to, get Pedro out of his contract and just pay him off.
Yeah, I don't think Jerry is too concerned about what's happening on the field right now at all.
Never.
No, and not that he has been in quite some time, but it is bigger stuff happening for him. That's for sure. So
No, why would you start now? It's only been 40 years.
Pat, always a pleasure, buddy. This has been great.
Hey, Nick, I'm sure you're gonna put some stuff out. We'll probably have to shift next week's show. Just so everybody knows, Nick will be boots on the ground in Arizona, getting all the juicy details.
Yeah.
Figuring out who's going to be picking up those last couple spots and how the wars are going in terms of positions and how's Moose loose on the town. Maybe find him out, have a dinner with him. So anyway, that being said, we'll probably be recording next Saturday morning at 9 o'clock or 9:30, I think is what we said. So 9:30 next Saturday morning, if you want to catch us live on YouTube, or you can always listen later and anywhere you get your podcast. But because Nick will be out vacationing and enjoying himself, we're going to shift a little bit next week.
Yeah, we're going to shift. We'll do, I think, Saturday morning, March 9th, breakfast with Good Guys Talk Back. We've had one of those before, and it's a great way to start the day. And again, if you miss, the live YouTube show, you just head on over, man. Subscribe to the Good Guys Talk Back YouTube channel. You can catch all of the shows. They're all archived and cataloged there for you right there on the channel. And of course, the audio absolutely everywhere you find your podcast. So thank you so much to everybody jumping in the comments, in the chat. It's been great. We do it because we absolutely love the White Sox. There's no other way about it. And we know we're not the only ones. And there's so many of us out there. And, there's a lot of White Sox content, and so for you folks to give us your time and energy, we appreciate that. So pass this along to other Sox fans in your life. We are on Twitter X at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.